Hi, I'm Joe James. This is our second video in the series on linear equations. In this video, we're going to introduce a new form of the linear equation called the standard form. So our slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b, would look like this for an equation. Y equals 3x plus 2, where 2 is the y-intercept, or b, and 3 is the slope. Now in the standard form, it looks like this: ax plus by equals c. And a, b, and c are variables. A is the coefficient of x, b is the coefficient of y, and c is just a constant. Now, unfortunately, the standard form a and b and c don't really mean very much. They don't mean y-intercept and they don't mean slope. They don't tell us much about that line at all. However, we'll find that we can use the standard form to find the x-intercept and the y-intercept pretty easily. We'll also, in a lot of cases, want to convert the standard form to the slope-intercept form in order to find the slope of the line, m, because we can't easily figure that out by looking at the standard form. So let's take a look at how we do that now. How do we convert from the standard form to the slope-intercept form? Well, given the standard form, negative 6x plus 2y equals 4, we want to isolate this y on the left side. So the first thing we're going to do is get rid of all the terms on the left that don't have a y in them. In other words, this negative 6x has to go. So since this is a negative 6x, how do we get rid of that on the left and move it to the right? Well, we have to do the opposite of negative 6x. We have to add 6x. So this is subtracting 6x. We're going to add 6x. Plus 6x on both sides of the equal sign. Let's see. Let's find that equal sign. Okay, to the other side of the equal sign, we're also going to add 6x. Okay, now we're adding 6x on both sides of the equal sign. What happens to this one on the left? We have a negative 6x and a positive 6x. Those cancel each other out, right? And on the left side of the equal sign, all we have left is 2y. Now on the right side of the equal sign, well, guess what? The 6x and the 4, we can't combine those. That doesn't make 10. No, because this is an x term and this is a constant. So these are not combinable. On the right-hand side of the equal sign, we got to keep these x term and the constant separate. And we'll usually want to write the x term first. So we'll write 6x. And that's a positive 4, so we'll write plus 4. So the last thing we have to do is get rid of this coefficient of y because we're trying to get to this, right? Y equals format. So since we're multiplying the y by 2, what we want to do to get rid of that 2 is divide by 2. We do the opposite of multiply. We're currently multiplying by 2, we need to divide by 2, and that will cancel out this 2 and just leave us with a y on the left. That's exactly what we want. Y equals, now let's see, since we divided this term by 2, we have to divide all the other terms by 2 as well. In other words, the 6x and the 4. So let's write equals, let's see, 6 over 2 x plus 4 over 2. We have to divide each term by 2. If we're going to divide the left side of the equation by 2, we have to divide the whole right side of the equation by 2. In other words, both terms by 2. So 6 divided by 2 is 3x, and 4 divided by 2 is 2. So that's a two-step process. Y equals 3x plus 2. That's the slope-intercept form of the equation. Now we know that the slope is equal to 3 and the y-intercept is equal to 2. Now let's try graphing a couple lines that are in standard format. So 4x minus 3y equals 12. We need 2 points on the line in order to graph the line. The easiest way to find 2 points for us is to put in a 0 for x and solve for y, and then to put in a 0 for y and solve for x. That will give us both the x and y intercepts for the line. So if we put in a 0 for x, 4 times 0 minus 3y equals 12. Now we can ignore this 4 times 0 term, right? Because 4 times 0 is 0. So that we can ignore that term. Negative 3y equals 12. Well, we just need to divide both sides by negative 3. And here we get y equals negative 4. So in other words, let's see, we put in a 0 for x. So 0, comma, negative 4 is 1 point on the line. Now let's see if we can find another point. Let's put in a 0 for y. Okay, so 4x minus, well, 3 times 0 is 0, right? So we can ignore that term. So that equals 12. 4x equals 12. And if we divide by 4, x equals 3. We divide both sides by 4 to get rid of this 4. X equals 3. So in other words, 3, comma, 0 is also a point on the line. We put in 0 for y and solve for x, and x equals 3. So 3, comma, 0 is also a point on the line. Now let's graph these. Okay, 3, comma, 0, 1, 2, 3, comma, 0, that's 1 point on the line. And then 0, comma, negative 4. 0, comma, negative 4 is going to be what, here? So that's another point. So that's 2 points on this line. Now we can just draw the line that passes through those 2 points. It looks something like this. So roughly that's the first line. Let's graph the second line. So again, we need to get 2 points. We'll put in a 0 for x and solve for y, and then we'll put in a 0 for y and solve for x. So 1 point is going to be 0, comma, something, and the other point is going to be something, comma, 0. So the first point where we put in a 0 for x, this gets canceled out because we multiply it by 0. So let's see, y equals 6, right? 0, comma, 6. Y equals 6 is what we get. And then we put in a 0 for y. Well, we get 2x equals 6 because we can ignore the y because it's 0. 2x equals 6. Then if we divide both sides by 2, we get x equals 3. X equals 3. So we can put in 3, comma, 0. So those are our 2 points on the second line. Let's see, 0, comma, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's 1 point right there. That's the y-intercept. And then the x-intercept is 3, comma, 0. So 1, 2, 3, comma, 0. That's right here. It's the same as this point, actually. So this line is going to look something like this. Passes through those 2 points. So those are our 2 lines. That's how we're going to graph lines. We can find the x-intercept and the y-intercept of each line by putting in a 0 for x to find the y-intercept and put in a 0 for y to find the x-intercept. And then we plot those 2 points and connect them with the line. So our next problem is, what is the slope-intercept form of the line with the equation 3x plus 5y equals 15? Well, our question here is, how do we convert the standard form to the slope-intercept form? Remember, we did that a couple slides ago. So the first thing we need to do is get rid of this x term on the left because we're trying to isolate the y. We want to get it into the y equals mx plus b format. That's what we're going for here. Y equals mx plus b. So if this is what we're trying to convert it to, we need to get rid of this 3x. So since this is a positive 3x that's being added to the y term, we want to subtract 3x from both sides. So minus 3x. And then on the other side of the equal sign, right? Here's the equal sign. On the other side of the equal sign, we're also going to subtract 3x, minus 3x. Okay. Now let's apply that and rewrite our equation. So these cancel out, right? And then on this side, we just get 5y on the left. That's all that's left. Equals, well, let's see. We have an x term and a constant. We cannot combine those. These are two separate terms. We'll write the x term first, which is negative 3x. And then this is a positive 15, so it's plus 15. Next, we need to get rid of this 5, the coefficient of y. And we currently are multiplying 5 times y. We're trying to isolate the y, so we're going to do the opposite of multiplying by 5. We're going to divide by 5. So we'll divide this term by 5 to cancel out those 5's. That works fine, and all we get is y left on the left side here. But we also have to divide all of the other terms in the equation by 5. So that means we have to divide this by 5. And we have to divide this by 5. So let's see. Here, this doesn't really divide out. So what we get is negative 3/5 times x. So that'll be our m, negative 3/5. That's our slope. Plus 15 over 5. Well, 15 over 5 that divides out to 3. So we can say plus 3. That's the y-intercept. Y equals negative 3/5 x plus 3. So that is the slope-intercept form of the line. This fraction is our slope, and the 3 is our y-intercept. So what is the slope-intercept form of the line with the equation negative 8 plus 4y equals 5? Well, let's convert this to slope-intercept. Where are we going to start? Well, we want to move all the x terms and constants over to the right and isolate the y here by itself. So let's start doing that. We have a negative 8x. We're going to do the opposite of negative 8, so we're going to add 8, right? Plus 8x. On both sides of the equal sign, so here's our equal sign, we want to add 8x to this side of the equal sign too. Plus 8x. And now we'll rewrite our equation with this plus 8x here. Let's see, over here, these cancel out, right? We have a negative 8x and a positive 8x. So we just get 4y on the left side of the equation. And on the right side, we get, well, 5 is a constant and 8x is an x term. So those are two different types of terms. We cannot combine those to make it 13. So what we need is to write the 8x here, 8x, and then we have a plus 5, right? So we'll write the x term first, and then the plus 5. Now we have one more step, which is to get rid of this 4, right? The coefficient of y. We want to isolate the y, so we still have to get rid of this 4. Now we're multiplying the y by 4, so we're going to divide the y by 4 to get rid of it, the opposite of multiplying. And when we do that, yeah, we cancel out this 4's. However, we also need to divide both of these two other terms by 4. So this gets divided by 4, the 8. And this 5 gets divided by 4. Now when we rewrite this equation, we get y equals, let's see, 8 divided by 4 is 2, right? So this becomes 2x plus, and then 5/4, there's no way for us to reduce that, so we just write 5/4. So 2x plus 5/4. So our slope is 2, the y-intercept is 5/4. He asked us to write the slope-intercept form of the line. That's it. Y equals 2x plus 5/4. Next, we have to find the slope of the line 9x minus 2y equals 12. So actually, we know from the previous problems we've done that we don't really care about the 12. What we do need to do is figure out what the coefficient of x is going to be when we put it in the y equals, the slope-intercept format. This constant won't matter, as you see. So first we have a positive 9x. We're going to subtract 9x from both sides. So let's do that. Let's do a minus 9x to cancel out the positive 9x we have here up above. And when we do that, we also have to subtract 9x on this side. Both sides of the equal sign. See our equal sign here? So we want to subtract 9x over here. Minus 9x on this side of the equal sign too. We'll rewrite this equation. Guess what? Those cancel out. Great. Now we have over here a negative 2y left on the left. Negative 2y equals 12 minus 9x, or I always prefer to write the x term first, negative 9x plus 12. And our next step is to divide out this negative 2. Now what we're interested in is the coefficient of x. So like I said, the 12 isn't going to matter. That's just the y-intercept. They ask us for the slope, which is just the coefficient of the x here. So we'll divide this by a negative 2 to get rid of that negative 2. We're currently multiplying the y by a negative 2. We need to divide by a negative 2 to cancel it out. So that cancels. Perfect. Now we need to divide this by a negative 2. And we also need to divide this by a negative 2, although, I mean, we don't care about that. What we care about is this. So our slope really is negative 9 over negative 2, which is, so m equals negative 9 over negative 2. Those two negative signs cancel each other out, and we just get 9/2 is the slope. The y-intercept is 12 over negative 2, which would be negative 6, but we don't care. So this is what they're asking us for, the slope. It's 9/2. Find the x and y intercepts of the line x plus 7y equals 21. Well, let's see. So what we're going to do then is set x equal to 0 to find the y-intercept, and set y equal to 0 to find the x-intercept. And we'll solve for the other one. So let's see. Let's plug in a 0 for x. When we plug in a 0 for x, we get 0 plus 7y equals 21. And so the 0 just goes away. We get 7y equals 21. We're going to divide both sides by 7. Divide that by 7. And we get what? These two 7's over here on the left cancel each other out. We get y equals 21 divided by 7, which is y equals 3. 21 over 7 is 3, right? So 0, 3 is one intercept. That's one intercept. That's the y-intercept, right? Now let's look for the x-intercept. So we're going to put in a 0 for y and figure out what x is. So let's see. We get x plus 0 times 7, or 7 times 0, either way, equals 21. And you see, since we put in a 0 for y, well, this we can ignore because that multiplies out to 0. So we get x equals 21. X equals 21. So our result is 21, comma, 0. That's our other intercept. That's the y-intercept. Or I'm sorry, that's the x-intercept, and this is the y-intercept down here. So those are our two intercepts. That's the x, that's the y-intercept. Okay, so again, all we have to do is put in a 0 for x to find the y-intercept, put in a 0 for y to find the x-intercept, and then we solve for the other one. I hope this video was helpful for you. If so, please click the like button and subscribe to my channel. I'm Joe James. Thanks for watching.